y'all doing? Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be filming a pretty exciting video, if I do say so myself. It is an updated how I tab and annotate my books videos. I've done 2 annotation videos prior to this one. The first one was where I basically just talked about my annotations in Deathly Hallows and my experience with annotating for the first time, and then also discussing some books that I would love to annotate in the future. The second video was like an update follow-up of that video where I just talked about all of the books that I annotated since then. But today I want to go more in depth on my annotation and tabbing system and tell you really how I go about annotating, what I do with showing examples along the way, and also showing the supplies that I use, and just giving you guys a better understanding of how I tab and annotate and why I decide to tab and annotate. So let's first talk about why I decide to tab and annotate my books. So when I'm reading a book that I really love and that I'm really enjoying, whether it's a book that I'm reading for the first time that I'm just feeling a really strong connection to, or a book that I am rereading, I just love to mark up my favorite places via tabbing, just so that I can have a visual representation of all of my favorite parts, and so that I can see how I was feeling, how much I actually enjoyed that book, depending on how many tabs are in the book, what I enjoyed from that book. And then with annotating, I just love when I reread a book, marking up like favorite quotes, favorite lines by highlighting, and I also just love writing my own little notes to myself of whatever I'm feeling as I'm reading, thoughts about the book, or also little jokes. I tend to write little jokes to myself. And annotating and tabbing is just a way to personalize your own library. When you annotate or tab a book, it is a one of a kind. No one else is going to have that same exact book anymore. It is personal to you and to your own collection, and I really like doing that. I love now personalizing my collection. So now just like a little disclaimer of sorts, I don't tab or annotate every single book that I read. I know some readers do that. Books with Chloe annotates every single book that she reads. I'm not that kind of reader. I only annotate, meaning highlighting or writing physically in my books. I only do that for rereads. I did do it for one book that I read for the first time, and it was not a good experience because I ended up not liking the book, so I'm not going to be doing that going forward. But I love doing it on rereads, and typically only on duplicate copies. I don't know why, it's just something about me. I don't like doing on original copies or like whatnots. And there are some books that I go into it knowing that I'm going to want to tab it, and then there are others where I'm just reading it and there's just a line that really pops out to me, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm tabbing this book. And some of them are really unexpected. Like, I didn't expect to want to tab a book. Sometimes it just pops out at me and I'm just like, I'm gonna love this book. I want to tab up all of these favorite parts. That's kind of just like a little disclaimer how I go about doing that. So I just want to go into talking about my supplies that I use and also my color coding system, because I do have a color coding system. So this is my annotation bag. It's just a Harry Potter makeup bag from Hot Topic that I use as a pencil case, which I'm obsessed with. So let's just talk about all my different supplies. So there's 2 pockets on either side, so let's just go through those first. So first I have this pen that I bought from Michael's, and I haven't actually used this in annotations yet, but I'm planning on doing it in the next book that I'm going to be annotating in, just to give it a try. And this is a Stabilo pen. I don't really know how to explain it. It's like a fine tip pen, but I'm really excited to use this. And then I also just have a pack of sticky notes, because the next book that I'm going to be reading, I want to use sticky notes inside, and I'll kind of go into this a little bit later. I also have a little index in here that I use to write down what each color means, just in case I forget. And in the other pocket are the tabs that I use. So I have 2 different kinds of tabs at the moment. I talked about one kind in my last video, but I've recently switched over to a slightly different kind. So the first kind is a Selectum. These look really gross and there's like nothing on them. I'm trying to like get rid of them, and I just made them small so I wouldn't be carrying around big things of tabs, but these are the tabs that I originally used. You can go to my old annotation video if you want to learn more about these ones. I've recently switched over to these Studio brand ones because I couldn't find those other ones and these were all that they had, but I like these ones a whole lot more. I find they just work better. They're better quality in my opinion. So the colors that come on here are orange, pink, yellow, green, and blue, and I really enjoy them. And it comes with two sets of each color, which I find really helpful. Those are the tabs that I use, and I'll go into my color coding system in a second here. I just want to go through all of the supplies first. So then inside the pencil pouch, we've got some highlighters. So I correspond my highlighters with my color tabs. So I have all the same colors. So we've got pink, orange, blue, yellow, and green. So for the most part, I use Sharpie highlighters. These specifically are the clear point ones. So when you write with them, it's actually a clear point so you can see what you're highlighting. So you don't over highlight or under highlight, and then it's like really unattractive. So this just makes highlighting a whole heck of a lot easier. Fortunately, I have yet to find a green one in these, so I'm still using my old Bic highlighter, which isn't my favorite, but you know, these are just the highlighters that I use. I know some people underline instead of highlighting. I know that Books with Chloe underlines instead of highlights, but I just prefer highlighting and having that extra color. And then the last things in here is just another Bic pen that I use normally when I'm annotating, but like I said, I'm trying to switch over to that Stabilo pen. But I also have pencil crayons, and this I'll talk about a bit later, but I do sometimes doodle in my books, so I just keep an arrangement of different colors in here. In case I do come across something when I'm annotating that I do want to kind of doodle in and be a little artistic, that's what these are for. Those are all these supplies. So now let's go through color coding. So I match my color coding of my highlighters and my tabs. So they are the same. They go together. So I've actually recently changed up my annotation color coding system. I changed one color to be something else because I found that I just wasn't using the colors. If you go to my old annotation videos, you will know that green was actually for anger, for like things that just made me angry while I was reading. But I've come to realize that I don't really use green all that often. If you look at my tabs, it's one of the colors that I have the most of. And things that make me angry just aren't really things that I want to take note of anymore. I'd rather just highlight things that I enjoy or whatnot. So I've changed green to be something else. So that's the only thing that has changed in my color coding system. So I'm just going to go through each color and tell you what each of them are. Orange is for funny moments. So just anything that I get a kick out of, anything that makes me laugh or like makes me, I don't know, just anything that I find funny in a text, I will use the orange tab and possibly highlight. Now just a little note, I don't always highlight everything that I tab, and I don't tab everything that I highlight. It kind of just depends on how deeply I connect with whatever the line is in the book. Pink are for quotes or any like really good lines I just really like and connect with. That is what pink is for. Yellow are for favorite moments, anything that I just really enjoy that makes me really happy. That's what yellow is for. Green was for anger, like I mentioned earlier, but now it's for fangirling. Originally, fangirling was tied in with my favorite parts, but I just would rather differentiate my favorite parts and fangirling moments because I do fangirl a lot. So I'm now hoping that by turning green into fangirling that I will use this color a lot more. Because let's be real here, I'm a fangirl, I fangirl a lot. So, and then the last color, blue, is for any sad moments. So I did mention earlier that I would rather just tab parts that give me joy or parts that I really enjoy. But I like marking up sad moments because I enjoy sad moments. Which sounds a little weird, but I enjoy when I'm sad in a book because it means that I have like an emotional attachment to the story or to the characters, and it just shows that I care, and so I actually do really enjoy sad moments. Now I do want to go into changing up my tabbing system a little bit. I'm going to try to find some more tabs with different colors that I could possibly use. I don't know if I'll actually follow through with that, but things that I would like to start marking up are like relatable moments, because I do find when I'm reading a text that I am relating a lot and I don't have a tab that I necessarily correspond with that. I could put it under yellow, but yellow is just like a very generalized tabbing for me. I don't know. So that's something that I'm working towards. I'm also trying to develop a color coding system for nonfiction books, but it might just be something where I have to change it for every nonfiction book that I read. My Anna from Little Wolf Reads recently did an annotation video, and she says that she changes her annotation color coding system for every book that she reads, and like in the beginning of the book she'll put like an index for what each color will mean. So that just might be something that I have to do for nonfiction, because not all nonfiction will have the same reactions. So that's something for me to consider in the future. I want to talk a little bit about my strategy or what's behind how I tab and annotate parts of my book. So I'll only tab or highlight something that I have like a strong connection to, or something that gets like a strong reaction out of me. If it like evokes an emotion or a reaction, or if I connect to it in some way, that's when I decide to tab or highlight something. Often I'll read a line and I'll just kind of continue reading, but then I won't be able to get that line out of my head, and so oftentimes I'll go back up into the page where that line was, and I'll tab it or highlight it after the fact. It's like I can't get it out of my head. So there are instances like that, or there are times where I just instantly like connect and know like I need to highlight this or I need to tab this. That's kind of like how I go about deciding to tab or annotate something. It's not like a science, it's just whatever makes me feel something is when I decide to tab or annotate. When I annotate along with highlighting, I did mention this earlier, I do write notes in the margins. Whatever I'm feeling, whatever I'm thinking about, if I have like a really strong thought in my head, I'll write it down. If I make a joke in my head, I'll write it down. If it's worthy of being written down, if I have a question, just anything that I'm thinking or feeling that I feel is worthy of being on the page, I'll put it down. And also, I mentioned earlier, sometimes I doodle in books. So let me show you just like a couple of like examples of this. In The Fault in Our Stars, this is the first book that I doodled in. There's a lot. If you watch my last annotation video, I actually did a full flip through of me going through all my doodles in this book, but let me just show you a few of my favorites. Page where I did a roller coaster, because there's that quote from Augustus, I'm on a roller coaster that only goes up, my friend, and so I knew I wanted to draw a roller coaster. So I try to do it fairly light so that when I reread the book I can still read the text underneath. So nothing that I do when I'm annotating obstructs my like ability to read the text, because this isn't a one-time thing. Like, this will be a book that I reread because it's a favorite, so I need to make sure that it doesn't obstruct my ability to read the text. So my favorite page is this one. They're in a restaurant in Amsterdam and they are tasting champagne for the first time, and there's the two separate quotes that I've highlighted on this page, and it says, "Come quickly, I'm tasting the stars," and then later down the page it says, "We bottled all the stars this evening, my young friends." And so I basically just drew two champagne glasses with champagne inside, and then I just doodled stars all over the page. That was that. So it's basically just like any symbolism or just anything that I really connect to, and I knew going into this book that there was a lot of little symbolisms that I could doodle, which is why I did that. Something else that I did that I just saw and now I can't find again. But sometimes I write out quotes as well that I really connect to. So I wrote down a quote down here. So I highlighted it and it says, "Oh, I wouldn't mind, Hazel Grace. It would be a privilege to have my heart broken by you." And so I just rewrote, "It would be a privilege to have my heart broken by you." That's an example of doodling and some notes that I take. I'll also show you Harry Potter, which is another one that I heavily doodled in. This is my copy of Philosopher's Stone that I annotate in, and as you can see, heavily tabbed, so it's also an example of tabbing. But for example, I did glasses and scars for The Boy Who Lived. I'm not an artist by any means, so some of these really suck and I'm really angry because this is a mistake that I made. I didn't go in with pencil first for this one. I just did it freehand with a pencil crayon, so it's definitely something that I would change going forward. This is my favorite. It's the letters from no one, and I drew all the acceptance letters kind of flying about, which I really enjoyed doing. So I basically just did little doodles, primarily on the chapter headers, but there are the occasional one on the page. Like I drew Harry's broomstick, which is not that good, but it's not awful either. But like I did do some actually on the pages or in the margins. Let me show you some examples of my tabbing, because I have a lot of examples of tabbing in front of me here. So For example, The Fault in Our Stars was actually with my old system when I used different tabs that had purple instead of orange. So purple in this case was funny, and when I got new tabs that had orange instead of purple, that became funny. So this is just slightly different. Oh, and also green instead of pink was for quotes, and then I'm pretty sure pink was for fangirling. So yeah, this was a slightly different color coding method. For example, the Hate You Give, I heavily tabbed. This has the color coding system from before I recently changed it. So green means angry. There's a lot of green in this one because there's a lot of injustice in this book, and so that's an example of that. So sometimes I tab a lot and sometimes I don't tab that much. This one's an example of a lot of tabbing. What If It's Us by Becky and Adam have hell of a lot of tabs. If you guys know, this is one of my favorite books, so this is a lot of tabs. And you can tell how I felt while reading this book just by looking at tabs. So if you look in here, you can tell there's a lot of orange, which means that I found this book really funny. There's a lot of yellow for favorite parts, so I was really happy. And there was also a lot of blue, which just means that I was sad. So you can definitely tell how I was feeling at all the different stages and parts of this book. I really tabbed A Very Large Expanse of Sea by Tahara Mafi. Look at all of those. So many tabs. Some of them I didn't tab that much. I have Unite Me by Tahara Mafi, which is one that I didn't re-tab. I just recently read this and annotated it, but when I first read it I didn't have that many tabs in it, and I also don't think these were color-coded. Another example of being notes to myself and like jokes to myself are some funny jokes that I wrote down in this one that I just found really funny, particularly about Warner being shirtless. We do a line from chapter 2. So it's in Warner's point of view, and he says, "Now I find myself standing naked, hungry, tired, and barefoot in my closet. This is not ideal." And I underlined, "I find myself standing naked." And then I also underlined, "This is not ideal." And I put, "It's ideal for me." So, like, just little things like that, like, I just find funny. So an orange tab could also be used if I just make myself laugh. And then there's another really funny one. Okay, so there's this one, and he says, "I'm again struck by how impossible it is that she's here in my bedroom staring at me without my shirt on." So I underlined staring at me without my shirt on, and then I wrote a little note in the margin. And this made me giggle a lot as I was like writing it, and I just like, I'm so funny. Anyways, I put, "I wish I could stare at Tim without a shirt on, but alas, he is fictional and I can't stare at Tim at all." That was my little note to myself. So that's just like an example of like a joke that I'll make to myself whilst reading something. And then we have The Storied Life of H.A. Fikri, which is still pretty heavily tabbed, but not to the extent of the other ones. Sometimes as well, I don't have a color coding system, and I decided to just do one color. For example, when I reread and annotated The Perks of Being a Wallflower last year, I just used green tabs, and the reasoning behind this was I was running out of tabs. I couldn't get to the store in time before reading this book to buy more. I knew that I just wouldn't have enough of certain colors to tab this book. So I was like, you know what, I have an excess amount of green, so I'm just going to use green because they match the cover. There will be instances where I'll just match the cover color, which is something that I'm going to do again with another book next month. Another thing that I do is I deface books sometimes, and defacing for me means like doing things on the cover or on the end pages. So I do have a few examples of that. So for an actual defacing, we have Wonder by R.J. Palacio. Two different things to this book. I sprayed the edges, I painted the edges. I also wrote "Choose Kind" because that's a quote from the book, one of my favorite quotes from the book. So I painted the edges, but I also did this to the book, and I also talked about this in my last annotation video, but I just drew Augie's face on some dictionary paper, and then I wrote my favorite quotes on the background. So this isn't a complete defacing. I would like to do something on the back, I would like to do something on the end pages, but this is just an example of something that I would do. Also Harry Potter, I did things on the end pages. We have Mr. H. Potter, the cover under the stairs. So I did the front of the acceptance letter, and then on the other side I did the back side of the acceptance letter, and I've done this for quite a few of the Harry Potter books. I'm not done doing them all, but it is something that I'm going to be doing. Kind of just like different examples of everything. An example of my new tabbing system, The Raven Boys, is the first book that I've done the new tabbing system in, where green means fangirl. I decided to change it when I got to this book, and I will now be continuing to use this new method with all my books. I guess it's kind of just like a rundown of how I've been annotating my books. If you are interested in getting into tabbing or annotating, tabbing is really easy because they're removable, so it's not permanent. So if you're wanting to get into annotating, I suggest doing it in a non-permanent way. So I mentioned this earlier, I currently have a pack of sticky notes, and that's because I'm about to pick up a book and I want to annotate it, but I'm not sure if I'm going to enjoy it. It's a non-fiction book. It's a book about Friends, the TV show, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna want to write anything down, and I just don't want to do it permanently just yet. So you can start out with writing your thoughts down on sticky notes and sticking it down in the book, and then you can later decide to rewrite it. I've done this before with Harriet History. When I first read this book, I wrote all my thoughts down on sticky notes, and then after a while I decided to go back through and write all my thoughts down. So if you look through it now, my thoughts are written down on the pages, and that's what I did after the fact. Also, I don't think this one has a color coding system either, like, at all. Annotating is a very personal thing. It's whatever you're comfortable with, it's whatever you want to do, it's whatever you feel like doing, and if you want to do it, then I definitely recommend trying, like I said, with the sticky note method. If you're not sure, if you want to commit to it, you can always go back through and add all the annotations in and highlight things or underline things. I also definitely recommend watching a few different videos on annotating so you can get a feel for what other people do, because everybody's annotation systems are different. I know that as over at Little Book Owl, I know that she has a very intensive annotating system. She uses like 10 different color tabs or something insane. So definitely just like watch around BookTube for different annotation videos to get a good feel of what could work for you and what kind of things you might want to annotate. You might like Mayana's method, where she has a different tabbing color coding system or a different annotating system for every book that she reads. Or you might like my system, where I have a dedicated color coding system for every book that I read. It's really just up to you on what you want to do. The annotation videos that I've enjoyed that I definitely recommend checking out are Mayana's annotation video. Peyton has a couple on her channel that are really good. Books with Chloe, Brittany the Bibliophile. Like, there are some really good annotation videos out there that you can go ahead and watch. Annotating is just something that I really enjoy doing, and it's something that I never thought that I would like doing, but it's something that I do enjoy doing. So I hope this video was helpful to you guys. I hope that I gave you some like insight to how I annotate, and I hope that helps you with your annotations. If you guys have any further questions about my annotations, how I do it, why I do it, blah blah blah, and definitely let me know down in the comments down below. I will definitely reply and answer any questions you have about annotating. Give this video a huge thumbs up if you did enjoy it. Comment down below not only if you have any further questions, but also let me know if you annotate your books, and what your favorite book you've annotated has been. I think my favorite annotated book has been Unite Me and Harry Potter. I think these two have been my favorite to annotate so far. Oh, no. And The Fault in Our Stars. Yeah, subscribe if you have not yet already, and I will see you guys next time.